If you try to conjure images of the war on drugs, you are probably picturing burly police officers raiding warehouses at night, shifty dealers lurking in the darkest street corners, or big-time kingpins with a violent temper smuggling tons of illicit substances in makeshift submarines. And yet, for a brief period, in the late 2010s, one of the most successful drug dealers in the world was a mild-mannered, plain-looking 20-something whose main concerns were to provide good customer service and an intuitive user interface. He was an unlikely drug lord who, at the peak of his activities, oversaw the sale of $800,000 worth of illegal merchandise every single day. He preferred to be known simply as Admin or Alpha02, but the media hailed him as the undisputed king of the dark web. He was the founder and lead administrator of AlphaBay, the world's most successful dark marketplace, and this is the story of his rise and inevitable tragic fall. Since the very early days of the World Wide Web, the criminal community has found a way to exploit the dark recesses of the web to trade in illegal merchandise. The very early platforms, such as The Hive, Pondman, or Rack Research, were rather basic and structured as discussion forums. The first modern dark web marketplace platform, or crypto market, was the now legendary Silk Road, launched in 2011 by former physicist, entrepreneur, and engineer Ross Ulbricht. For 2 years, under the username Dreadpirate Roberts, Ulbricht dominated the trade of illegal drugs and forged documents on the dark web until the FBI arrested him in November 2013. His creation resurfaced shortly thereafter as Silk Road 2.0, now sharing an increasingly crowded marketplace with competitors such as Pandora, Hydra, Cloud9, Evolution, and Agora. International law enforcement intervened again to shed light upon the darkest recesses of the web. Operation Anonymous, launched in November 2014, led to the shutdown of the Silk Road 2.0 as well as other smaller marketplaces. The time was ripe for a new kid on the block to emerge, and that was AlphaBay. Based on subsequent investigations, it appears that the platform had been designed in mid-2014. It then launched on the 26th of December 2014, shortly after the success of Operation Anonymous. At the beginning, the market was dominated by carders, i.e. fraudsters specializing in pilfering and taking credit card numbers and other banking credentials. In the ensuing months, the platform expanded its operations to stolen account logins and malware, all under the guidance of its mysterious administrator, identified by the handle Alpha02 and speculated to be a carder and/or hacker himself. Shortly thereafter, Alpha02 enacted what appeared to be a carefully planned vision. He included recreational substances in the portfolio, thus uniting two spheres of the dark web, thus far separate, cybercrime and the drug trade, to create a united mega market, an Amazon or eBay catering to the needs of the underworld. Okay, so using AlphaBay was not exactly as straightforward as buying and selling merch on eBay or Amazon, as there were several barriers to entry designed to ensure anonymity, to protect sellers from law enforcement, and to ward off potential scammers. The platform was accessible only through the Onion router or Tor network, which anonymized the IP addresses of its servers. Using the Tor network would also hinder the localization of the website's community, including administrators, moderators, and users. Once a prospective buyer was in, they would need to load funds onto an AlphaBay-controlled user account, and they would be able to do so only by using cryptocurrencies with Bitcoin, Monero, and Ethereum as preferred choices. Next, they would start browsing the thousands of listings on offer, displayed in a user-friendly interface inspired by mainstream e-commerce platforms. By far the most popular section was the one dedicated to recreational drugs, often sold uncut and in high-potency concentrations. Buyers could purchase high doses of heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, cannabis, to name just a few. But unlike contemporary competitors, such as the Hunza dark web marketplace, AlphaBay guidelines allowed sellers to peddle also novel, obscure, and altered substances, such as the synthetic opioid Captagon. If users demanded a substance, providers would place a listing for it. Buyers would test the new drugs and then post their reviews on the platform. According to a 2017 paper by the International Journal of Drug Policy, the variety of choice and the interaction between suppliers and buyers were a key differentiator of AlphaBay and one of the factors that propelled its success against the competition. Nicholas Kristin at Carnegie Mellon University of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, conducted a detailed analysis of all drug sales conducted within European Union countries from 2014 to 2017. While limited to the EU market, this report gives us an idea of the type and quantity of substances exchanged during AlphaBay's heyday. Christian found that 1,965 AlphaBay vendors shipped their items from EU countries, catering mainly to the retail market, but occasionally dispatching bulk shipments. In the latter case, much like an underworld version of Costco, they applied volume-based discounts. These vendors sold a total of 3,125 doses of cannabis for a total of 15 kilos or 33 pounds. Cocaine sales amounted to 626 transactions, mostly 1-gram doses. Ketamine sold 158 times, but chemical uppers and downers were not the only merchandise on offer. Other categories included forged and illegal documents, credit card information, counterfeit currency, malware, tutorials for hackers, and even a section dedicated to firearms and explosives. Thanks to this variety, AlphaBay was able to become a one-stop shop for all types of criminal operations. Not everything was fair game for Alpha02, however. The mysterious admin placed a strict ban on child abuse material and hitmen, either out of moral considerations or to avoid too much scrutiny from authorities. Additionally, the platform declared Russia and former Soviet states as no-go areas. Vendors could not sell any data stolen from those regions, nor buyers could attack those countries' networks with malware purchased on the site. Again, this was a measure to prevent scrutiny from Russian law enforcement, which was pretty draconian when it came to cybercrime. As for the sellers, their identities were clearly protected, but it appears that they were mostly small fry in the context of the criminal underworld. This is what emerged from a June 2017 report published by the School of Criminology, University of Montreal, and the International Center for Comparative Criminology. Quoting from their findings, market share statistics indicate that the vendor with the highest proportion of market share throughout the period of study earns no more than 3.13% of the total market. From these results, low market share concentrations can be inferred. Vendors have a limited online size and scope, small market share, little experience, and limited diversity. The quote ends. In other words, it appears that AlphaBay was not dominated by a few large criminal outfits or kingpins, allowing smaller and medium-sized distributors to shine in the dark web. Once the buyer purchased one of the goods and services on offer, the agreed amount of currency would be transferred from the user to an escrow account also controlled by AlphaBay. These funds would reach the virtual pockets of the seller only after the buyer confirmed receipt of their purchase. Next, the seller might want to transfer their proceeds into a personal bank account. In that case, AlphaBay offered so-called tumbling and mixing services, which obscured the digital trail of cryptocurrency movements. This system was designed to guarantee complete anonymity for all parties involved in the transaction. Moreover, it protected buyers from scammers peddling bogus merchandise or offering non-existent services. This was a constant concern for AlphaBay, which even employed scam watchers to nip in the bud any attempt at defrauding their valued customers. For a criminal enterprise, AlphaBay sure did know how to provide some great customer service. And from a purely marketing perspective, that was their USP, their unique selling proposition against the competitors. Some crypto marketplaces had turned out to be exit scams in which admins collected funds from users and sellers alike before shutting down the platform and disappearing with their loot. Others were rife with fake sellers and scammers. By comparison, AlphaBay was safe, reliable, reputable, with a focus on providing good service for all users, but with a preference for the buyers. The latter could even provide product reviews, which contributed to keeping the dealers in check. The system indirectly encouraged new sellers to run promotional deals to get in the good graces of reviewers. With illegal merchandise peddled at discount prices, the number of transactions rose at a high rate in early 2015, with volumes rivaled only by competitors Agora and Evolution. But in March 2015, Evolution simply vanished. A Reddit user identified as NSW Great, a self-described staff member at Evolution, posted that the platform's admins had performed a classic exit scam. In other words, they had attracted thousands of users, encouraged them to deposit $12 million worth of Bitcoin on their accounts before grabbing the cash and vanishing into thin air. Evolution's orphaned users made for an ideal customer base for the AlphaBay staff, who reassured them that they were a legit platform, thanks to the presence of scam watchers. In April 2015, the elusive Alpha02 attracted more users following an interview with specialized news site Deep.web. The administrator emphasized the robustness of his platform's operational security, or OPSEC. Quoting, "I'm absolutely certain my OPSEC is secure. We've made sure to have created a stable and fast marketplace web application which has been built with security in mind right from the start. We would like to assure all of our users, both vendors and buyers, that their security, privacy, and anonymity rank first place in our priorities list." In May, dark web communities were shaken by the news that Ross Ulbricht, Silk Road's founder, had received a double life sentence. Alpha02 seized the occasion to position himself as the new standard bearer for the dark market communities. In an interview to tech news site Motherboard, he declared, quote, "Courts can stop a man, but they can't stop an ideology. Darknet markets will always be around until the war on drugs stops." But in autumn 2015, it appeared that Alpha02 wanted to partially step away from his newfound notoriety. He changed his username to the very basic admin and announced that he would delegate most of the more hands-on aspects of his job. This meant that he would not accept any private messages from the platform's users, but would communicate only with AlphaBay staff. Users were asked instead to direct all messages to his second-in-command and head of security, an individual known as D-Snake or DS. Some AlphaBay users suspected that this reorganization at the top was a prelude to an exit scam. One of them, known as Kinga, posted a message on the platform pointing their finger against D-Snake. To quote them, "PS D-Snake, if you read this, we know who you are and where you reside. We know you're a Dutch guy who acts like he's Russian. Should you attempt to exit scam with AlphaBay, rest assured your docs will be posted." No exit scam was attempted, and no heads of security were doxed in the process. Thus, D-Snake's nationality, let alone his identity, remains unknown. But he definitely was active, participating in Reddit discussions alongside other members of AlphaBay staff such as Rapsy, Disco, Rusho, Botac, Big Muscles, Mountain High 9, and Chief Public Relations Manager, Trappy. The dark web subreddits were in fact the only above-board marketing channels used by the AlphaBay organization, which contributed to the platform's notoriety. But AlphaBay reached its maximum potential only with the closure of competitor Agora in October of 2015. Its administrators were concerned by security and anonymity flaws in the Tor network, vulnerabilities which Alpha02, aka admin, appeared to have addressed. As a result, AlphaBay had further consolidated their hold on the darkest recesses of cyberspace. The platform could boast more than 200,000 users and more than 21,000 product listings. By comparison, Silk Road had peaked at just 12,000 listings. And by mid-2016, daily sales peaked at $350,000. By then, the organization had secured an almost complete monopoly, becoming the largest dark web marketplace. But unlike other sectors, the market for illicit drugs seldom saturates, and so AlphaBay just continued to grow. In 2017, the community had grown exponentially, with 40,000 sellers posting some 250,000 listings for illegal drugs and toxic chemicals, plus 100,000 listings for forged documents, counterfeit money, malware, weapons, and other fraudulent services. This all-encompassing catalog generated a head-spinning amount of sales, reaching as high as $800,000 in revenue every day. All in all, during the 2014 to 2017 period, AlphaBay had grossed as much cash as all other pre-existing dark marketplaces combined from 2011 to 2015. So, loads of dough for admin and his friends, but how much exactly? Well, to start with, the AlphaBay organization collected a fixed upfront fee of $200 from every new user wishing to sell on the platform. Besides discouraging scammers, this barrier to entry provided the organization with a good chunk of cash. As mentioned, the platform had some 40,000 registered sellers as of 2017, which means that AlphaBay had made $8 million in registration fees alone. In addition to that, the marketplace would collect a commission of 2 to 4% on every transaction, of which there were plenty. According to the Department of Justice's official indictment documents, between May 2015 and February 2017, Bitcoin addresses associated with AlphaBay conducted approximately 4,023,480 transactions, receiving approximately 839,087 Bitcoin and sending approximately 838,976 Bitcoin. This equals approximately $450 million in deposits to AlphaBay. But those are only the Bitcoin transactions. The overall values of deposits into the AlphaBay's user accounts may have been closer to $1 billion, which means that the admin team may have collected somewhere between $20 and $30 million in commissions. It was a surge, a tidal wave, a tsunami of criminal trafficking that could not but attract the attention of law enforcement agencies worldwide. AlphaBay's admin appeared to have done his homework, securing the anonymity and security of his operations. As such, investigators could not locate his servers, let alone the mystery man himself. All they could do was take stock of the lethal effect of AlphaBay merchandise on the community. As stated by Jess Session, the US Attorney General in 2017, quote, "The investigation into AlphaBay reveals that numerous vendors sold fentanyl and heroin, and there have been multiple overdose deaths across the country attributed to purchases on this site. We know of several Americans who were killed by drugs on AlphaBay. One victim was just 18 years old when in February she overdosed on a powerful synthetic opioid, which she'd bought on AlphaBay." Sessions went on to confirm that another boy had died after consuming a synthetic opioid bought on AlphaBay. Sadly, he was just 13. The hunt for AlphaBay and its court of darknet puppet masters would eventually be conducted by an international team of law enforcement agencies. In the US, this included the FBI, the DEA, the IRS, Criminal Investigation Service, as well as Immigration and Customs Enforcement's Homeland Security investigations. But the inquiries had been sparked by the initiation of Assistant U.S. Attorney Grant B. Rabin, responsible for the Eastern District of California. Rabin had been looking at investigating dark web marketplaces since 2015, assembling a multi-agency task force. In early 2016, Rabin invited DEA agent Robert Miller to join his team based in Fresno, California. Miller eagerly accepted and took on the role of making undercover heroin buys online. The tactic was simple: purchase drugs until a vendor made a mistake, leading to their identification and arrest. By then, AlphaBay had become the top dogs in the dark web, and so the team concentrated their efforts on the platform's enigmatic admin, which Rabin described as, quote, the Michael Jordan of the dark web. Miller compiled a list of AlphaBay's more active vendors of heroin and fentanyl and started buying from them one by one. Eventually, one of them made a slip-up. In his communications with Miller, the vendor had used a PGP key. PGP stands for Pretty Good Privacy and indicates a file used to exchange encrypted messages. The problem was that the seller had linked the PGP key to an email address, which could be traced to his social media presence and real name. Moreover, Miller found fingerprints on one of the heroin packages sent by the same vendor, which bore the fingerprints of a second individual. Both men were tracked down in New York and promptly arrested. Another dealer based in San Francisco also fudged up their PGP key, leading to more arrests. Rabin, Miller, and team continued to score successes against AlphaBay users, but were yet to make headway into locating King Admin, or his darknet courtiers. Unbeknownst to them, their tactical victories had attracted the attention of an anonymous informant, someone who had been looking for contacts within the law enforcement community to deliver a true bombshell against AlphaBay. The Fresno team, and Miller in particular, kept popping up in Google searches related to dark web arrests. The tipster eventually reasoned that Miller was the right man for the job, and in November 2016, he sent him the email that would initiate the fall of AlphaBay. In his anonymous message, the informant claimed to be an early registrant of AlphaBay. Back then, users received a welcome email, which appeared to be sent from a personal inbox. pimpalex91@hotmail.com. Not only was this email address cringe as heck, but using it represented a major security flaw. It had soon been corrected, but the mysterious tipster had retained that original welcome message. U.S. Attorney Rabin and his team looked into Pimp Alex and found that the email account was associated with the LinkedIn profile of the owner of a small IT support business, EBX Technologies. Moreover, the email address had been used to open a PayPal account linked to EBX and the same individual. Finally, investigators dug up a post published back in 2008 on an online tech forum. The post featured Pimp Alex's address and had been made by a user called Alpha02. All digital clues pointed to the fact that Alpha02, the king of the dark web and the owner of EBX, were one and the same person, 25-year-old Canadian citizen Alexandra Kaz. As it turns out, Alexandra Kaz was quite active online, allowing investigators to learn much about his private life. For example, they found out that Kaz was active in pickup artists forums, where he dispensed seduction advice under the username Romeo. More importantly, they learned from Facebook that he was married to a young Thai woman, and the two lived in Bangkok. The FBI and the DEA contacted the Royal Thai Police, who started tailing Kaz. His daily routine was unremarkable, but it was apparent that the young Canadian was extremely wealthy, perhaps too much so considering his official job. Kaz owned 3 properties in Bangkok, as well as 3 vacation homes in Phuket, Cyprus, and Antigua. He drove around the Thai capital at the wheel of his Lamborghini or his Porsche and bragged about having a net worth of $23 million. It became evident that Alexander Kaz was indeed Alpha02, aka admin, and thus authorities started planning for his arrest. U.S. Attorney Rabin filed an indictment on June 1, 2017, according to which Kaz was charged with 1 count of conspiracy to engage in racketeering, 1 count of conspiracy to distribute narcotics, 6 counts of distribution of narcotics, 1 count of conspiracy to commit identity theft, 4 counts of unlawful transfer of false identification documents, 1 count of conspiracy to commit device access fraud, 1 count of trafficking in device-making equipment, 1 count of money laundering conspiracy. Seizing Kaz would be simple enough, but US federal agencies and their counterparts at Europol planned for something more complex, but infinitely more satisfying. Operation Bayonet. AlphaBay's closest competitor was the Hansa marketplace, which ran off servers initially based in the Netherlands. The Dutch National Police, or DNP, had already made good progress in identifying Hansa's administrators, 2 German nationals. They were just about to seize the servers when the Hansa team relocated to an unknown location. But the DNP were no fools, and they tracked the new servers to Lithuania. Their bold plan was to covertly take over Hansa by seizing the servers and arresting the administrators in Germany. Only then would the DNP give the go-ahead for the arrest of Kaz and the shutdown of AlphaBay. They reasoned that once the platform would be offline, its users would flock to the next best choice, i.e. Hansa. But by then, the Dutch platform would be already under the control of the authorities, giving them the opportunity to closely monitor thousands of illegal transactions. So, on June the 20th, 2017, Dutch, German, and Lithuanian law enforcement swooped in, simultaneously seizing Hansa's servers and arresting its administrators. As per their plan, the unsuspecting users continued to buy and sell drugs online, and as per plan, the Royal Thai Police could proceed with the arrest of Kaz. On the morning of July 5th, a female police officer drove her car into the narrow cul-de-sac where the Canadian lived with his wife, who was by then heavily pregnant. Pretending to be a clumsy motorist, the officer performed a miscalculated U-turn, crashing into the front gate of the Kaz residence. A loud commotion ensued, and Kaz rushed outside to check what was going on. That's when a squad of police officers rushed onto the scene, tackling him to the ground and storming the property. As the police walked into Kaz's study, they realized they'd hit the jackpot. The man formerly known as Alpha02 had just logged into AlphaBay's backends with his admin login. Not only did this prove that the Canadian expat was indeed the king of the dark web, but it allowed investigators to locate and subsequently seize all of the platform's servers. Alexander Kaz was immediately taken into custody, while Thai and American law enforcement seized his assets. In addition to the real estate properties and luxury cars we already mentioned, investigators found that he had at least 11 bank accounts and cryptocurrency accounts totaling almost $10 million in cash. A week after his arrest, on July the 12th, the FBI and DEA were taking steps to organize Kaz's extradition to the US, while his attorney, Roger Bonakdar, was about to fly to Bangkok to meet him. That's when news reached him. Alexander Kaz had ended his own life, hanging himself with a bath towel. What was the motive for this extreme course of action? Based on the Silk Road precedent, Alexander Kaz could realistically expect a life sentence, something he simply could not bear the thought of. But it's fair to say that Kaz's death raised some eyebrows. According to Bonakdar, I know someone who's on the edge when I speak to them. I just never got that sense from Kaz that he felt all was lost, that there was no recovering from this, that he was a dead man. Kaz's mother, Danielle Aru, also refused the official version, stating, "Why did the FBI take no action to protect their trophy while awaiting his extradition to the USA? Surely they wanted Alex not to speak, and his assassination was ordered." We should point out that both Mrs. Uro and Kaz's father, Martin, doubted that their son would be capable of masterminding such a criminal organization. Speaking to Radio Canada in June 2023, Danielle stated that Alexandra was not a drug dealer who frequented exotic dancers. She continued to be doubtful about her son's cause of death and his very role in AlphaBay. But she acknowledged that Alexandra held a vast fortune of which she shared very little. As reported by Radio Canada, while her son enjoyed a luxurious lifestyle in Thailand, Danielle never stopped working as a bus driver. She swears she didn't know the value of Alexandra's bank account. Today, she believes he wanted to protect her. Regardless of doubts and conspiracy theories, American and European law enforcement agencies were happy with the official version of events and proceeded to the next stages of Operation Bayonet. First, the FBI quietly closed AlphaBay without releasing a public statement nor posting the customary seizure screen. The platform's users were left speculating why the site was down. Technical difficulties, an exit scam? Whatever the issues, they still needed to buy and sell their goods, and thus they flocked to Hansa. Previously, the platform had averaged 600 new registrations a day. In July and August 2017, the figure skyrocketed to 5,000. The AlphaBay orphans took to Hansa with gusto, performing more than 1,000 transactions every day. Unbeknownst to them, the Dutch National Police were in charge behind the scenes. For a period of 27 days, the DNP monitored thousands of online conversations, identified the IP addresses of hundreds of dealers, as well as confiscating their cryptocurrency accounts. It was a massive sting operation, which led to hundreds of convictions and was eventually terminated only because the associated paperwork overwhelmed the Dutch legal system. Operation Bayonet continued with further notable arrests. In 2018, AlphaBay's PR manager, Ronald Wheeler III, previously known as Trappy, received a 4-year sentence. In 2020, it was the turn of platform moderator Brian Connor Harrell, aka Bertar, who was sentenced to 11 years. But Bayonet failed to capture Kaz's second-in-command, D-Snake. According to Trappy, they were one and the same person. This was unlikely, as D-Snake resurfaced in August 2021 to resurrect AlphaBay from the netherworld of defunct dark web marketplaces. The new platform was simply named AlphaBay02. No points for imagination, but we guess it made sense to capitalize on the brand equity. D-Snake was now firmly in command and had ramped up the security features by introducing a new security protocol called AlphaGuard. Moreover, transactions could be conducted only with cryptocurrency Monero, proven to be resistant to blockchain analysis performed by law enforcement. To show the world that he was back, D-Snake released an interview to Wired explaining his motives. Quote, "The biggest reason I am returning is to make the AlphaBay name be remembered as more than the marketplace which got busted and the founder made out to have committed suicide." Buyers and dealers were initially suspicious of AlphaBay2. Was this an exit scam? Was it a repeat of Operation Bayonet? It appears that D-Snake had no intention to dupe his customers, and the new king of the dark web operated without a hitch for more than a year. While never attracting as much traffic as the OG AlphaBay, its sequel amassed a respectable 33,000 listings, mostly drug-related, but no fentanyl. D-Snake had placed a ban on the opioid as well as on firearms. But in December 2022, the marketplace started behaving strangely, going offline and back online without warning or explanation. Then, in early February 2023, AlphaBay2 went down and it was replaced by a screen with the single error message, "Onion site not found." On February the 14th, an AlphaBay2 admin known as the Cypriot took to Reddit to reassure users, "In my experience over the years, this is not LE, law enforcement. Feel free to discuss. Many of you will, but the signs are just not there. If it is, it would be the worst planned and executed LE action in the history of the markets. In my experience, this is not an exit scam. I mean, if it doesn't come back, it would be. But it would be the most poorly planned and executed exit in the history of the markets. Doesn't mean that it wasn't." The explanation provided by the Cypriot, AlphaBay2 had been shut down because one of the canaries used by the platform had not been signed on time by D-Snake. According to tech publication Tailored Access, a canary is a safety feature to alert users when a website may have been compromised, and it requires a website's administrator to sign in with their PGP key at regular intervals. If they fail to do so, the website automatically goes offline. As reported by Tailored Access, D-Snake may have been physically unable to perform the signature and has been unable to rectify the mistake since then. But what could have prevented D-Snake from signing the canary? Some Redditors noted that AlphaBay2's disappearance coincided with the Turkey-Syria earthquake of February 6, 2023. They also noted that D-Snake may have had links to Russia, which backed the regime in Damascus. Their speculation was that D-Snake had moved to Syria sometime in late 2022 and had been one of the more than 60,000 casualties of the catastrophe. D-Snake's fate remains a mystery at the time of preparing this episode, and AlphaBay2 is not recovered. The second demise, however, is far from good news for the law enforcement agencies committed to waging war on drugs, and the sale of illicit goods online continues. As of 2024, AlphaBay's mantle has been picked up by yet another platform, Abacus Market. With over 40,000 listings, Abacus is moderately successful, but far from the dizzying triumphs achieved by the original AlphaBay. While the new platform appears as the top player, several other competitors are not lagging far behind. This is indicative of a new trend in which the dark web marketplace is increasingly fragmented, which makes the job of authorities all the more difficult. Almost like the mythical Hydra of Lerna, one head may have been cut off, but more insidious heads are bound to emerge from the shadows of the dark web.